Hey everyone, welcome back to Santi. Today we'll discuss Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. We'll try to understand whether this is the bottom for Ethereum in terms of Bitcoin, and then we'll try to speculate whether Ethereum will outperform Bitcoin in the remainder of this year. So let's get started. You will probably know that Ethereum Bitcoin valuation was in a downward sloping price channel for the last couple of quarters. It all started with Q3 of 2022. And after that, every single time when Ethereum rallies in terms of Bitcoin and it goes close to the upper trend line of this price channel, it finds a resistance zone there. And conversely, every single time when Ethereum crashed and plummeted in terms of Bitcoin, the lower trend line became the support zone and it acted as support for multiple times. However, you can see that recently, the last couple of weeks, Ethereum Bitcoin valuation seems to break this price channel to the downside, which is something that we anticipated. So here, for the last 5 or 6 weeks, we have clear weekly closes below the lower trend line. So this is a clear breakout to the downside, which is very bearish, at least in the short term. And what could be the reason for this? And when did it start? When we look, we'll see that the first weekly close was in 19th of August. This was the first weekly close that Ethereum Bitcoin valuation found itself below the trend line. And then after that, every single week, Ethereum traded lower in Bitcoin terms. So I guess this is related with risk-taking levels. And it is directly related to the macroeconomic outlook, which is related to the monetary policy that we currently have. In simple terms, if you have two choices, Ethereum or Bitcoin, you will only want to invest in Ethereum if you know that you will have higher returns, because Bitcoin is considered to be the safest crypto asset. Ethereum is maybe the second safest, maybe it's the third, no one cares for this argument, of course. So Ethereum is riskier than Bitcoin. And if you take on more risk by investing in Ethereum, you need to seek more reward. So if you know that Ethereum will underperform Bitcoin, there is no need to invest in Ethereum. You'll invest only in Bitcoin. In other words, I believe that Ethereum will continue to underperform Bitcoin as long as we have tight monetary policy. Right now, if you follow the news, you will see that people are very uncertain about everything. We have US elections coming up. Then for the last 2 years, we have geopolitical risks. And recently, a lot of people are spooked by the chance of a recession. Some of them are starting to price in a recession, which I believe that is a real possibility. So people are uncertain, and uncertainty means higher risk. So whenever the environment becomes more uncertain, people will become more risk averse, which means that people will start to allocate more money to Bitcoin than Ethereum or altcoins. And that's what we see here. For the last 2 years, Ethereum bled against Bitcoin. However, it was in this downward sloping price channel, and every time it went close to the lower trend line, it found support there. But we see that recently that's not the case. It broke the price channel to the downside. And I guess that this is primarily because of the increased chance of a recession. Because you can see that the low that we have here, we don't have a close here, weekly close. However, the low was 0.04 for Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. That happened on 5th of August. This is the day when the yen carry trade started to implode. So this is the day that Ethereum started to show weakness against Bitcoin. And after that, we know that a lot of people started to price in a recession. Then we had, of course, the 4.3% unemployment rate. Then we had some downward revisions. So a lot of people started to feel that there is a higher chance of a recession than the market prices in. And I believe that Ethereum Bitcoin valuation went down and it broke this price channel primarily because of recessionary fears. And this doesn't look bullish for the short term. This is quite bearish because we had clear weekly closes for the last 4 weeks already. And there is another thing that I wanted to show you. This is certainly something that we looked at for the last 2 years. And eventually we see that it broke to the downside. A lot of people were saying that this is a bullish trend, it will break to the upside. But we said that during the last cycle, Ethereum Bitcoin valuation was in a downward sloping channel as well, and it broke to the downside. So there is no guarantee that every time it will be the same. However, there was a pattern, and that pattern played again this cycle. And there is another pattern, quite interesting pattern. If we take this triangle, I'm sure that a lot of you know that this was a key zone for Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. This was the 0.05. And we see that in June of 2022, Ethereum plummeted against Bitcoin. And then Ethereum Bitcoin valuation found support for many, many months in this year at this key zone. Then we had a fake out to the downside. It bounced back very quickly, and this was the ETF news. And after that, it just plummeted. So here we have that zone, and then so we have this descending triangle pattern. And what is interesting about this pattern? The interesting part is that this is not the first time that Ethereum Bitcoin valuation during this time of the cycle finds itself in this type of pattern. So let's go to the last cycle. Here we are in 2019. We see that Ethereum Bitcoin valuation had a key support zone here as well. It was close to 0.026. And here we have the descending triangle pattern. And what is interesting? We had one clear support, then second support, and the third time it just plummeted. It's not very similar with that respect because we had many supports in 2024 and then it wanted to plummet. However, the news of Ethereum spot ETFs was enough for Ethereum Bitcoin valuation to go above this key zone. And after that, it just started to plummet again. However, please pay attention to the big picture. The big picture is that Ethereum Bitcoin valuation was in a in a descending triangle pattern. And when it broke to the downside, Ethereum, if we just include the weekly closes, let's not include the weeks, bled another 33% in Bitcoin terms. And why is this very important for us? So let's add the chart of US interest rates. This is very important because the current environment is quite similar to 2019 because we had quantitative tightening back then. A few months ago, when Bitcoin was trading at 74K, most of the people were sure that Bitcoin is going to just break the 100K target, and we were in a 2021 type rally. However, only a few people said that maybe we are in a 2019 type rally. And we have a whole series about that. And the conclusion was that we are in a 2019 type rally. So coming back to Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, here in 2019, we had quantitative tightening cycle. And the Federal Reserve was expected to cut the rates, the interest rate. Here we see that Ethereum broke this key support zone of 0.026 around the first rate cut. Actually, this was a few weeks after the first rate cut. And if we go to the current environment, we'll see that Ethereum broke the key support zone of 0.05 again around the first rate cut. This time it was before the first rate cut, so you know that the Federal Reserve is going to have its first rate cut after 11 days in September. So this was 2 months before the first rate cut, but it is again around the first rate cut. And then Ethereum just plummeted in Bitcoin terms. And what marked the bottom? You will probably know the answer. It's when the Federal Reserve transitioned from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. Before that, the Federal Reserve was selling assets, securities. And after that, it transitioned from QT to quantitative easing, to QE. They started to buy in the open market. They started to buy securities in order to increase the liquidity levels. Their balance sheet started to expand, and that was the exact week when Ethereum Bitcoin valuation had its cycle bottom. This was not a local bottom. This was the cycle low for Ethereum. And from the key support zone, Ethereum plummeted another 33% if we exclude the weeks, if we only include the weekly closes. Here, if we come to today's environment, we will see that Ethereum already broke the key zone of support, because it's again around the first rate cut. And we know that at some point in time, the Federal Reserve will transition from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. In fact, if we have a recession, or at least a fear of recession, the Federal Reserve might start the quantitative easing round sooner, just because the markets are spooked. If the S&P 500 continues to bleed and it contracts another 15%, you can bet that the Federal Reserve will start the next QE round. So when the Federal Reserve transitions from QT to QE, chances are high that it will mark the bottom for Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. And probably it will be the cycle bottom, not just a local bottom. And it's not just a pattern coming from the last cycle. The intuition here is very simple. When we have quantitative easing, we have looser monetary policy, we also have higher amounts of liquidity in the market, and people just want to take on more risk and they seek higher rewards. So that's why a lot of investors start to buy altcoins or Ethereum. The environment becomes risk on. However, now there are a lot of uncertainties, which of course is a hindrance for those investors. They are risk averse now. But when we have QE and liquidity is back, more and more investors will start to pay attention to altcoins and risky stuff. That's why we should keep an eye on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. Possibly it will mark the bottom for Ethereum Bitcoin. It's not going to be precise like last cycle. Last cycle it was very precise. It was the same week when Federal Reserve transitioned from QT to QE. That same week was the cycle low for Ethereum. This time around, maybe it will be a few weeks off. I guess it's not a big problem for us. And if we look at the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, and if we had 33% drawdowns last time in the last cycle when Ethereum broke the key support zone. History should not repeat. I'm not suggesting that, but it often rhymes. So I don't suggest that the drawdown levels from the key support zone will be the same as in 2019. This is just a proxy for us. If it contracts the same amount, if Ethereum underperforms Bitcoin the same amount as it did in 2019, which is by no means guaranteed, it's just a proxy for us, it will take the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation to 0.034. And from the current level of the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, it's another 17 or 18% drawdown. But it is just a proxy. I don't suggest that the exact cycle bottom of Ethereum will be at this valuation. This is just a proxy for us. This is what will happen if Ethereum Bitcoin valuation contracts the same percentage points as it did in 2019. But it's not guaranteed, of course. It's better to look at the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. When they start the QE, chances are high that Ethereum will start to outperform Bitcoin. So this is something that we need to keep in our minds. Ethereum Bitcoin valuation is quite close to its cycle lows. This is my opinion. Let's just close this once for now. Ethereum bled against Bitcoin for many months or quarters. Now it's already years, for the last 2 years to be specific. And I guess that we are very close to the cycle lows of Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. And when the next QE starts, I believe that Ethereum will not underperform Bitcoin. And chances are good that, at least for the short term, Ethereum will outperform Bitcoin, as it did during the last cycles. Not always, but when we have QE, when we have the blow off top of the cycle, Ethereum outperforms Bitcoin. Altcoins start to outperform Bitcoin. We have alt season. The demand for risky assets is higher than Bitcoin, the safest crypto, the safe asset. So that's quite natural. It happens in all markets. It's not only specific to crypto market. And another very important thing is that all this happened before the COVID recession. So this has nothing to do with the pandemic, with the recession, with the 40% increase in the M2 money supply. All this happened in 2019, and we cannot blame Ethereum's underperformance on the COVID recession and the M2 money supply increase. So this is what I think about the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. It seems very reasonable to think that it repeats the same pattern as it did in 2019 in the last cycle. Maybe it's not going to play out exactly the same way. However, the big picture is very similar, at least as of now. So I believe that chances are good that it will continue to resemble with the pattern that we just saw. And chances are good that Ethereum Bitcoin valuation will have its cycle lows around the time when the Federal Reserve transitions from the quantitative tightening cycle to the new QE cycle. So that's why please keep your eyes on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet if you are interested in Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. Because remember that this is just a barometer for the overall health of the crypto market. Even if you don't have Ethereum in your portfolio, or maybe you don't even have Bitcoin, you just have alts, I don't know. A quite risky approach, of course. However, remember that Ethereum Bitcoin valuation is not for Ethereum and Bitcoin only. It is just a barometer which shows the overall health of the crypto market. Whenever this goes down, when this valuation goes down, it means that investors become more risk averse. They want to stick with Bitcoin. They sell Ethereum more than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's demand is higher than Ethereum's. And Ethereum is the proxy for the altcoin market. There will always be some altcoins which will outperform Bitcoin by a big margin, but we are just speaking about the general altcoin market. And whenever Ethereum Bitcoin valuation starts to trend upwards consistently, it suggests that investors are ready to take on more risk and they are seeking more rewards, higher returns. That's why this valuation is very important for the overall crypto market to understand, to gauge the health and the sentiment of the crypto market. All right. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like the content. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.